So let's talk about EPW because it's something I don't know a lot about, but I see that you do a lot of it. Dean Olsen, is this your name?
Dean Olsen's my pseudonym when I commentate for EPW, which is Explosive Pro Wrestling. If you've not heard of it before, the longest running wrestling promotion in Perth, Western Australia, started up in 2001. Just last month was 16 years since I joined them. So I've been, it's very interesting now because I'm somewhat of an elder statesman amongst the crew. So it's really cool.
That's awesome. And it's a full subculture in Perth, isn't it?
It really is. And the funny thing is, like, to this day, I'll tell people that I do it, and people are like, oh, I didn't know wrestling was around in Perth. And it has been since 2001. Like, it's like, nearly 22 years worth now.
Yeah.
And it's quite a big thing. They pull decent crowds. There's more than one company in Perth. So it's a weird little subculture of like fandom and people that love it. That like even fans that love wrestling, like say WWE, the American wrestling, may still be oblivious to the fact that it exists within Perth, which still blows my mind. But it's one of those little things that does exist. It has for some time, and I personally love it and think it's really cool, and I'm just happy to be a part of it.
How good is that? And we know various people. Like there's obviously yourself, Al. And I know there's a couple of others involved that do different things. Like there's wrestlers. Mm-hmm. You're a commentator. Yep. I think Al was a manager at some point.
Yeah,
they do all the things.
Yeah, Al managed. He was also part of the booking team at one stage. The people that like make the matches and sort of like book who's going to be up against who on the shows and stuff like that.
Yep.
Yeah, he did a little bit of that too in his time. Obviously, Al and I go way back. Back to when we were with different companies, and then he ended up joining EPW, which is great.
Oh, controversial.
It's like, we're all mates, man. So it was nothing but love. But he had a really good. He was like a heel manager. So in the world of wrestling, you have your heels, which a heel is a bad guy, and a baby face, which is the good guys.
Babyface are the good guys. I didn't know that. I didn't know that's what they were called.
So the heel's a good guy. This is all like backstage talk lingo within wrestling.
Yeah,
it's not really. They call it kayfabe, but you keep it away from the punters like they did back when people pretended it was real.
Yeah.
Whereas Al was a heel manager. He was like a bad guy, and we're talking like nuclear heat. People used to like constantly boo when he would talk because they hated him so much. Like people hated him passionately.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was really cool. Like he should be very proud of how hated he was. And then he did some other stuff which is really fun and sort of silly, like with the Mexican wrestling masks and stuff. That was really hokey, and they'd come out and like throw Doritos into the crowd, and I'd steal Doritos off him and eat them the entire time I was out there.
That's brilliant. So it's a full show as far as you've got certain wrestlers at the time who are the characters the same as what you'd see in WWE. So you have a guy who's the bad guy.
Yeah.
You've got the good guys. Mm-hmm. They could switch over at any time.
Yep.
And they fully, like, if you get on Facebook, they'll be doing the videos, like, the guys
I've like
fully
done
getting into character.
Yeah, I've done like the interviews where what are your thoughts on, Robbie Klitzing?
Yeah.
I'll tell you something, this Robbie guy, blah, 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 all that hokey sort of stuff.
So good.
Some of them are quite normal when they do it too, but all that sort of stuff, mate. Yeah, we're all over, it's epwperth.com is the website, at epwperth on all the socials if you want to check us out. We're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all that. Got YouTube as well. So much stuff on YouTube you can see if you're just the slightest bit interested. You'll see everything from that. They call them promos when they do the interviews and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
Different vignettes, which are like your little filmed things where you'll see them out and about doing whatever the hell wrestlers could be doing that's relevant to their character. And then, we have our shows that you go see the matches and see where it all pays off and people do their thing.
That's cool. So when you commentate, is that, say, live on YouTube or something? Like, is it live streamed somewhere or can you watch it later?
Not live streamed, although that's something that they have been looking into here and there because live streaming is such a... Oh man, it is an interesting beast.
Yeah, right.
I have commentated live streamed Muay Thai before, and I've been next to the production guy watching what he does, and I tell you what, I'm glad I'm talking and not doing his gig.
Oh, you're joking?
It's nuts.
Like keeping you on air.
Oh man, but they're like sorting out the cameras of which camera to focus on and like all that stuff and throwing to things and tells me when they're going on an ad and this sort of stuff. It's wild.
Yeah, crazy.
But anyway, with wrestling, it gets recorded live.
Yep.
For the production that gets sent out to be watched online.
Oh, okay. Okay,
so
cool.
my recording of it is done as it's happening.
Yeah.
Which you get the best reaction that way. But it'll be for when the video has been edited in post and put together and put out.
Oh, cool. And can anyone watch that, or is it like a subscription thing where you got to pay for it?
We have a Vimeo where you can pay to see events in full, but then we'll also drop some stuff on YouTube. So it often changes. Some things will go straight to YouTube, full shows. Sometimes it'll just be a match or two.
Yeah.
So yeah, a bit of both really.
That's cool. And so there's a couple of different companies. Will you kind of like fight against each other and bring each other into your storylines?
No, we kind of stick to ourselves.
Yeah.
EPW recently bought out a pre-existing company as well.
Oh, really?
But yeah, it's interesting because as much as sometimes you can kind of there can be a bit of a rivalry. A lot of the guys wrestle for the same people anyway.
Yeah.
So like it's like at the moment one of the other company's main champions is a guy who was just a tag team champion with us. You know what I mean? So
so they jump between.
Yeah. It's kind of I guess you could say freelancing.
Yeah, fair call.
Yeah, it's such a weird little world though. I tell you, it's trying to explain it to someone that's never experienced it or know what it is. It just people would probably just think it's crazy.
I'm gonna have to come along and have a watch sometime.
Would
Where
love
do
to
you
have
do
you,
it?
man.
Like, is it always the same place, or do you rotate locations?
Obviously doing this for many years, the home base has changed a lot, and at the moment we're bouncing around a bunch. For the last several years, we were down at the Gate 1 Theatre at Claremont Showgrounds, but we're no longer there. We've been bouncing between Frio Social, was where we did our last one, in Fremantle.
Oh, yeah. Is that a pub?
Yeah, it used to be the Fly-By Night.
Yeah, right.
Showing our age.
Bloody hell.
So Frio Social, we've done a bunch of shows over the last year and a half, and we've also been at a venue down in Merriwa, so far south, far north, which is interesting because if you know Perth like we do, northies don't like going south and southies don't like going north.
Yeah.
But so we've been bouncing between those two. Our biggest show of the year is always a show called Reawakening, which is our last EPW show of the year.
Okay, cool.
And our biggest one of 2022 was at the Willerton Basketball Stadium, which is a big stadium. We pulled 800 people. It was huge, man. It was so cool too. Just like we had such a huge crowd, the biggest crowd in years.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was so good, man.
How many events a year do you do?
Ooh, that varies. If I had to guess and roughly say, because it can change, we'd probably do like maybe 8 big shows a year.
Okay, cool.
But we also do showcases at the training facility as well, which is sort of smaller, low key, a lot less production, and a lot of the sort of up and comers and even some trainees can sort of cut their teeth there and put on a show and stuff like that. I'll be involved in a lot of those as well.
Yeah, cool.
So yeah, it's different levels to it, I guess. So yeah.
There's been a few guys that have actually started off in Perth, right? And they've gone on to bigger things, like they've gone to America and joined, is it TNT or WWE?
WWE, yeah. There's WWE, there's Impact Wrestling in America, there's AEW. A bunch of people from Melbourne and Sydney and South Australia as well. They've moved on and done stuff over there as well. A couple of our guys, they were in WWE tag teaming for a while. And
that's what I thought, yeah.
Yeah. Actually, good mates of mine, and they're cracking blokes as well. A lot of fun to get on the sauce with as well. But they are now doing wrestling in Japan as well. Wrestling, this is another...
Is it big in Japan?
It is huge, man. It's another one of those things that if people who are oblivious to it would just kind of think, oh, Japanese wrestling, a lot of times, like I've flown to Japan before and like predominantly to watch wrestling.
Really?
Yeah, and I told people like, oh, like sumo, and you're like, no, it's like the pro wrestling.
Wow.
It's very different over there. They cover it in the sports section of the newspaper.
Oh.
And it's treated like an actual sport.
That's so good.
Yeah, it's really well respected. Like, it's weird. In Japan, wrestling, well, pro wrestling as it's called, is it's viewed as like a sport in Japan,
Yeah.
It's almost like a religion in Mexico. Huge in Mexico, man. And in like America.
Oh, I did know that. Yeah.
The masks and everything. It's a massive
Rey
cultural thing.
Mysterio and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Whereas I guess like in America and more Western cultures, it's kind of like a bit of a joke.
Yeah.
But
a very big money-making joke.
Yeah. It's huge in Japan though, and there's so much of it, and that's probably my preferred style. I love the Japanese wrestling. They belt the crap out of each other.
Oh, that's so
It's
cool.
awesome. I'll send you some clips, man. It's wild.
Okay, I'll need to have a look. Did the Beast, Dennis Cometti's son, did he go through you guys?
No, he went through one of the other companies.
Yeah.
And he was doing a bunch of stuff on the indies over in America.
Yeah, right.
He's like humongous. Have you ever met him?
I've never met him. He actually does our stats on Triple M Footy, right?
Oh, wow.
And I've never actually met him in person. I've just heard him quite a lot, and he sounds like Cometti.
Yeah. I've not met him in person, but I've seen him at shows, and compared to other guys that I do know,
Yeah.
the guy is humongous. He's a giant.
So the Beast
Yes.
is an appropriate
Man,
name?
dude is just jacked, man. It's wild. Yeah.
Just wild. And he's actually on Young Rock?
Oh,
He's
is he?
like on TV shows and movies.
Oh, I
Yeah.
wouldn't be surprised when you look like that. Why not, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I'm like short and got nothing to me. Like these guys are like tall and like the size of a house. It's like, man, go nuts. Why not?
Are these guys fully amateur, or do they make money or even make a living out of the Perth stuff?
Look, you're not. I don't think you're gonna. No one's paying the rent off doing like pro wrestling in Perth. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You can get different levels of money through it, but things like if you to get to WWE, which is such a tough task. Like you've got to be so good. Like if you're, it's kind of like I guess like making like the NBA, you know what I mean? Like you have to be so good just to be the worst guy in that company, you know what I mean?
Right,
like,
yeah.
And but they obviously WWE would be the best paying, you know what I mean, and stuff like that. There's also AEW in America now, and Impact as well, probably the third biggest in the States. Those would be places where you get bigger paychecks. Obviously, some of the companies in Japan pay well, so it's much like I guess any real workforce. You have your different levels to it, you know what I mean? Like you have your big ones, and then you have your sort of middle of the range ones, and you get your sort of lower ones. So
Yeah, cool.
it's just like I guess any other form of entertainment industry, really.
Have you ever done any of the wrestling stuff yourself, or have you always been commentating and behind the scenes?
Oh,
gear?
look, the first time I ever got involved in commentating wrestling, I was like doing backyard wrestling with a bunch of my mates.
Yeah,
so
right.
I would get in there and have a crack then, but I pretty much just wanted to commentate.
Yeah.
So I recently, this is how long back it's been going. I'd been doing radio for a couple of years, and my sister-in-law's brother was doing this backyard wrestling.
Right.
Like, oh yeah, you lot, because I'm just like a massive wrestling fan. Like, you should get involved.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I don't want to wrestle. I don't want to do anything that involves like fitness and exercise. I'm like, but I can talk. I'm starting doing radio, So I was like, oh, I'll have a crack at commentating. I sort of did that, and I'd go there and help out and all that sort of stuff. And so I did a little bit then, and yeah, it was a bit of fun, but it wasn't something I was great at. You know what I mean? The one thing I always said going into it is, I'm like, what can you offer the world of pro wrestling? And I'm like, the last thing they need is some short guy with no build who, is like not going to offer anything. I'm like, but I can talk well. I know the stuff really well. Like I really, really know my stuff that I'm talking about. So I was like, I could have something to offer in that realm. And then basically that led to EPW, because after doing that as long as we did, the group that we were doing it with kind of disbanded. I was kind of like, you know what, I wonder if I'd be good enough to hang with the big guys, you know what I mean? EPW is the biggest company in Perth, and I thought, I want to have a crack at this. I want to see if I can actually, do it properly.
Yeah.
And here we are 16 years later, Robbie.
Great. It's a great way to look at it as well. And
Yeah.
go, like, that's probably not for me, but I can do this.
Yeah.
I guess that's how people become umpires in the AFL.
I guess.
But you're probably more liked.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
the umpires.
People love booing the referees in wrestling too. That's the thing, and I say this to a lot of people that train as well, because people come down and I've seen so many over the years people come and want to train to be a wrestler, and it's not for everyone, you know what I mean? But for everyone that doesn't want to wrestle, there's people that end up doing production or refereeing, or just there's so many multifacets to it that make it all work.
Yeah.
That you don't have to be in there taking bumps and bloody hurting yourself, or even having to stay in good shape.
Yeah.
There's a theme of laziness in my life, Robbie.
I like this.
Yeah.
And I can concur with you as well. I'm a lazy bastard myself.
Yeah, look, I'll force myself to exercise and go to the gym, but I don't like it.
I'll do it, but I won't like
Yes,
it.
I'll do it very reluctantly.
Speaking of which, so when you watch wrestling like WWE, for example, and I've always heard people say this, it's fake, it's blah, 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 blah. And yes, the storylines are. We can all agree on that. But the actual wrestling itself, they're doing all these moves and they're like jumping off big shit. They're smacking each other. They're doing all these things. So, but they're getting paid a lot of money to do it. So like here in Perth locally, how hard are they going at each other, or what moves are they pulling off?
Mate, they're doing it all.
Yeah?
Yeah, they're not holding back.
So they're watching TV and going, I want to do that. And they're...
Man, they want to do more than that.
Yeah, right.
So, and that's the cool thing about it. You got to come down to see these shows, because it's one of the guys who I used to work with within the wrestling said it's the most uniquely interactive form of entertainment you could possibly go to.
Yeah.
Like, you can go there and boo the hell out of someone just because, I don't know, you don't like their haircut. Or, like, you can, like, cheer someone you like, or, like, get involved and, help. Because they'll, sort of talk, yell at the crowd if they're a bad guy and stuff like that. But the people involved that do the wrestling and do the moves, they want to do the most over the top stuff to get the best reactions.
Yeah, right.
And they'll see something crazy happen somewhere else and be like, oh man, I can do better than that. You know what I mean? So it's if anything, sometimes people probably have to try and be held back a little bit rather than going too far
to save themselves type thing.
Yeah, because everyone wants to do crazy stuff. Everyone wants to be remembered. Everyone wants to get amongst it.
Do they go through tables, all that sort of stuff?
Mate, so for years we'd be at ringside when we were at the Venville Rec Centre, which we no longer do.
Yeah.
Our table would be ringside and people would go through our announcing table like all the time. Our mixer,
That's awesome.
Our mixer was so banged up, and the production guy'd be ripping his hair out. Same production guy as well. He's been there longer than I have. But yeah, and it was one of those things that if you saw it coming, you'd move out the way because if they go through the table breaks like on your legs. It bloody hurt.
It would cane.
Yeah.
It would cane. You'd bruise up.
Yeah.
Do they pull out the and this might be going a bit too far, do they put like barbed wire around bats and hit each other?
Yeah, that sort of stuff.
They do
happens.
that?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't think they'd do that.
Yeah, but oh god, I've done all sorts of stuff and seen so much over the years. But yeah, barbed wires come into it.
What's the craziest thing you've seen then? Or am I putting you on the spot because there'd be so many?
Well, the craziest thing I've seen was not in EPW.
Okay, yeah. Was this backyard wrestling?
No. So I was a part of this show called Dude, Where's My Ring? And it was a no ring like wrestling show at Badlands. Actually, at Badlands is another pub I like to go to.
Oh yeah, Badlands is good.
Yeah, and so it was deathmatch wrestling, which is a whole nother side of hardcore wrestling. It's
Tell me more.
Ultra-violent wrestling. This thing's just sort of popped up. And I don't know if I'm here supposed to be exclusively talking about EPW or not. I'm allowed to talk about other...
You can talk about what you want. We ain't sponsored. I'm just interested.
Okay, mate. So we did a show, this Dude, Where's My Ring? And it was all like death matches. No ring. So if they get slammed or whatever, it's on literally the floor of the pub.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so it's crazy. It's nuts.
Is the ring a ring of people, like all sort of gathered around? Or?
If you haven't seen Badlands, there's like a little dance floor that's sort of sunken in.
Yeah.
That was the fight pit. And everyone was around it. It was so unique.
That's so good.
I hosted, I commentated, and I ring announced the entire night. I actually had a blast doing it. But anyway, so in ultra-violent death matches, there's light tube, fluorescent light tubes like you've probably got here.
Yeah.
They're smashing each other with them, going through tables. There's a barbed wire ironing board. So there's different levels to wrestling, right? But anyway, to get to the point, there's things called gusset plates. Have you heard of a gusset plate before?
I don't know what it is, but I have heard of one.
Okay, it's
weirdly enough.
I guess it's I'm not a handyman in the slightest, but it's like a when they put wooden foundations and structures together.
Yeah,
they're like a metal plate, like a little rectangular metal plate about yay big, and they've got little hooks on them where they sticks the metal together. Sticks the wood together.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
So gusset plates somehow. Some idiot invented bringing that into wrestling, and they'll put them on tables. So when you get slammed or they smack them into each other's heads, and the gusset plate sticks into them, and there's obviously blood goes everywhere.
Are you joking?
Oh, dude, it's nuts, right?
That's the spikes, right?
Yeah,
gusset plates. Yeah.
So they're like kind of hook spikes. So it'll gash them open because obviously death matches, they're like blood like you wouldn't imagine. Again, I can show you clips. Anyway, there's a deathmatch wrestler from over east called Joel Bateman. He came over for the show.
Yeah.
And I was commentating the match, and he copped a gusset plate to the head.
What?
And this is quite normal fare, though, in deathmatch wrestling, which when I say the word normal, I guess that's out of a completely different realm.
Yeah, but
anyway,
it's their normal.
Yeah, but he got a gusset plate to the head, and when he, removed it, his head literally was squirting blood. Not just like when, someone gets cut or in a wrestling match, it'll kind of blood trickles out of your head.
Yeah.
This was like
what the hell? Like a horror movie.
Like a drink fountain, yeah. And I've been doing this for 16 years, Robbie, and I'd never seen anything like it. And whilst I was commentating this match, the thought did cross my mind, am I going to see someone die here tonight?
Wow, that sounds like he actually hit an artery or something.
Yeah, well, one of my friends was in the crowd, and she's a nurse, and she was just I spoke to her after the fact. And she's there's medical staff on site as well, and that. But it rendered me speechless in a world where I'm never usually lost for words, Robbie.
That is unbelievable. Hey, so death wrestling, death match
wrestling, yeah.
How would that compare then to something that's just come out in the last couple of years? I think the UFC or MMA or something run it. The slap matches.
Okay.
Have you seen these?
I've seen a little bit of it in passing. It just seems so strange.
I've just seen clips on Facebook. I've never sat down and watched it.
Yeah.
But these guys cane each other. Like someone is going to die from that or break their neck or something.
Yeah. Look, you wouldn't be able to pay me to do it.
Hell no.
Well, the thing is in wrestling, right? Because obviously wrestling's a work, as they say. Like things are set up and they work together to make the moves happen. Still hurts like hell.
Yeah.
They get slammed. You slam anyone on anything, and it's gonna hurt.
Yeah.
You know, you whack someone with a chair, it's gonna hurt.
Yeah.
In wrestling, when they slap each other, they try and aim for like the neck or the face. The whole thing is you want to avoid the ear.
Yeah, okay.
You pop an eardrum doing that sort of stuff.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, and these guys are just giving it what for? Like, just, it's nuts.
Yeah, there's some serious
Crazy.
hits in it.
I can understand a bunch of drunk people yelling and cheering for it and having a fun time. Don't get me wrong, if it was coming to Perth, I'd think about buying a ticket, but I haven't actually sat down and watched a full show. I can't imagine what a full show's like. Like,
Yeah.
sure you get half an hour and then you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that was a good one. Like, you know,
Yeah.
like,
I think it'd be a bit too brutal, to be honest. Like, I've just seen on Facebook the highlights. So, okay, it's the big slap that really wrecks a guy. And I don't think I could watch a whole night of that. Like, it'd be too... It would torment
It'd be
you.
weird, right? Yeah, like don't get me wrong, I love combat sports. I love boxing. I love MMA and all that sort of stuff. But we actually have a wrestler with us at the moment called Lucas Fantasia.
Okay.
He's
Cool name.
Yeah, a great
Related
great
to
guy.
Orazio? Orazio
Oh, man.
Fantasia.
He's actually a Freo fan.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, so he's a great bloke. Anyway, he great character as well, cracking bloke. And anyway, he does like a big whopping slap, but he's a small guy.
Yeah, right.
So you see this guy who's like shorter than me, quite a slim build, but he just wallops these people with this slap, and every time gets an amazing reaction. And at our
From the
last
crowd
show,
or from the actual person who he's slapping?
both.
Yeah.
The person that cops the slap has no choice because you can't fake that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like at our last show, he slapped a guy, Bobby Marshall, who's about maybe 6'3", big dude, one of the toughest guys I've seen in wrestling, who's just like a maniac. And yeah, afterwards, like, how'd you go? And he's like, oh yeah. He's like, he explains it like it's kind of like the lights go like, boo. Like, and I'm just like, yeah, it's probably
Pulling a tooth out.
Yeah,
as
like
he's
he's
answering
missing
you.
a tooth, so it works well. But yeah, it's you know. Yeah, it's wild. I would not want someone to slap me in the face like that.
That's insane.
It's a weird world. But yeah, these death matches, a lot of companies will do death matches in like a wrestling ring.
Yeah.
But the one that I was asked to be involved with, and I was like, this is going to be insane. Sign me up. Yeah, that was no ring, so it's just on the floor.
That is nuts. That is absolutely nuts.
Look, I went to work on Monday and had a lot of cool videos and stories to tell my coworkers. So, yeah, humble brag.
I bet you did. Yeah, that's crazy. I haven't even looked at any of my questions, but there's one more I do want to ask you, actually.
Sure, man. Yeah.
The Dean Olsen Award. What's going on with this? I've seen it pop up on Facebook. Is this something that you sponsor or you buy the trophy or whatever and then you hand it to an up-and-coming ringside announcer, or what's the go?
No, okay, so this is a massive peek behind the curtain, Robbie.
Oh, look out.
So we do our awards every year and the fans vote on the awards of like, you know, the most improved wrestler. They'll do like, you know, the wrestler of the year, match of the year, things like that, you know what I mean? Rookie of the year. And then we have our in-company awards. Okay?
Right.
So we do like an end of year wind-up.
Like a best and fairest sort of thing where you get best clubman,
Exactly.
best
So
wrestler, blah, blah, blah.
that's a great way to think of it because we have most improved, we have best wrestler of the year, we have best match of the year, and all that sort of stuff. And one year, unbeknownst to myself, the guy who was running at the time, Nate Dooley, the mate I was telling you off air about who did sales for West Coast for a while.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, Nate Dooley.
Yeah. Big West Coast fan. Yeah. Oh, man, that guy cracks me up. Anyway, so one time we were at the awards and he introduced a new award called the Dean Olsen Award, named after myself.
Love this.
And, you know, I'd had a couple by then, and it was quite emotional. I was not prepared. I did not know how to deal with these emotions, Robbie.
Did you cry? Was there tears?
There wasn't tears. There was more like shock and awe.
Yeah, right.
And so basically it was almost like a best clubman kind of award.
That's so
And
good.
it's named after me. The best thing is I have nothing to do with it. I don't vote it, so it's not like an ego trip for myself.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm sitting here going, oh, you know, old mate over there, we went out on the piss and he paid for my drinks all night, so, you know, he's getting the award.
Which would be a smart way to run things.
To be honest, mate, I'm completely susceptible to bribery. I'll never lie about that. But yeah, so it's voted within the board of directors of EPW and the board themselves. They vote on who is sort of like the best club and the person that may not be the main event of every show, but sort of, you know, does all the 1%ers and has really sort of had a good year of being about what EPW is about. They get the Dean Olsen Award. The fact that it's named after me family and represents that is so humbling and sometimes difficult to deal with. But every year I'm kind of like, oh, surely they won't do it this year, and they do, and I'm just like, it makes me feel lovely. Just to be acknowledged for my years of service, I guess. And I just love EPW so much. So it's as much of a thrill as it is an honor.
It's highly impressive. So do you present it every year? Like, I know you don't have any say in who wins it, but on the night, presentation night, do you get up there, give a bit of a speech and be like, congratulations, the Dean Olsen Award this year is...
Actually, no, I
Robbie,
don't.
no, you don't.
No, and so,
This is bullshit.
Because, no, well, see, then it would seem like I'm a part of it, you know what I mean? And I don't want it to seem like I'm picking my favorite or anything like that. I usually present an award at these nights more often than because like I'm the guy who talks. So
gotcha.
they're like, oh yeah.
Oh,
cool.
so you actually MC the night?
Yeah,
or
well, a lot of
present it
times
anyway.
they'll be like, oh, can you do match of the year? Like I did match of the
Gotcha.
year. We did it behind time. We did it a few weeks back, and I did match of the year. Sometimes I'll do like wrestler of the year or whatever. So
Cool.
they'll just sort of like, hey, can you do this? I'm like, of course, yeah. Go for it. And then depending on how many drinks I have, depends on how good or bad my presentation of it is. Oh,
I'm
man.
hearing you. But then
Yeah.
you would at least have to introduce the guy who's presenting the Dean Olsen Award.
Yeah,
So that's not
I do
bad.
things like that. Like,
Yeah.
man, it's just cool to be a part of.
I reckon
man.
it's great. It's
yeah,
awesome.
like it's funny after all these years. I'm still loving it. Like I was having a chat with Luke Boland.
Is he a comedian? Stand-up comedian?
Yeah, stand-up comedian.
Yeah, okay, cool.
He
Are you mates with him?
He worked in radio for many years. He was the original commentator for EPW, and when I first joined back in 2007, I called for years with Luke.
Oh, there you go.
And he's no longer doing it. And I was chatting to him about just whatever, and he was like, how much longer do you think you're going to do this for?
Mm.
And I was just like, I've never thought of an end date. I've never thought, oh, maybe I'm getting a bit too old, or oh, maybe I'll wrap it up. I'm just sort of like,
You've just always loved it.
I'm still loving it. I don't
That's
want to
great.
stop. If anything, I want to do more.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, sweet.
It's, I don't know. Maybe there's other people that want me to go. I've said, Dave and Shell, the two people that run EPW, I've said to them many times, I said, look, I'm here till you don't want me anymore.
Yeah, right.
When you
right,
come up
right.
to me, tap me on the shoulder and say, all right, mate, it's time to move on. I'll take my hat and I'll go. But until then, man, I'm there with bells on every single time.
The Best Clubman Award is named after you. I don't think they're sending you anywhere anytime soon.
Well, unless I force their hand by doing something incredibly stupid, Robbie, but I endeavour not to.
Hey, even that's good video content these days, so they'll probably appreciate
Look,
it.
as long as it goes viral. Right?
Mate, this has been a really good chat, and it's been highly educational. I really knew nothing about this subculture of wrestling right here in Perth.
Yeah.
Tons of people get into it. It's
do.
great.
And there's always room for more. If you want to come down to a show, even if you're just mildly curious, come down and check it out. If you want to get involved in wrestling, we have our the EPW School of Pro Wrestling.
Yeah, right.
And they do open days a few times a year where you can go and just sort of like trial if it's your kind of thing and you want to get involved.
Cool.
If you ever want to like referee and things like that, there's plenty of room for people that do that, do production, stuff like that as well.
Nice.
But more importantly, just come down and check it out. Like, the funny thing is I've got mates that don't really think much of wrestling in general, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And in my early days, like, they would come down, and a lot of the times at most of the venues you can drink. They come down, they have a few beers, and like, oh man, it's just so much fun. And it's like, well, you wouldn't know unless you're there.
Yeah.
Sometimes you watch it on TV and you kind of remove from the atmosphere. Like, the atmosphere is electric.
Okay,
it's a lot
cool.
of fun. It's really like it's a great time out, and people just have so much fun there. It's like it's awesome. Some people dress up, some people bring signs, some people just sit back and enjoy the carnage and craziness. Like, my mum started going to shows and has loved it.
Oh,
and
that's
like,
great.
Yeah, like, because that was the weird thing growing up. My dad's a big sports guy. He just, he's just like, oh, it's just all bullshit. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I got him down to one show once, and he thought it was fantastic, but still, he's like, it's all a big put on.
Yeah.
Whereas my stepdad was a massive wrestling fan and a big part of me being a wrestling fan, so he loved it. You know what I mean? So
That's awesome.
Even whilst it's not for everyone, a lot of people come down and they're surprised by how much they enjoy it. And you'll never know unless you go. So come down and check out EPW.
That's so good, because when we worked together at Red FM, which was a good 5 or 6 or 7 years, I always meant to come to a show, and you'd tell me when they were on, and something would always come up, and I never went, but I still want to go to one. So maybe next time you have like a big one,
Yeah.
I think I'll come along.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, and I so many, and I don't hold it against anyone because similar situations have happened with so many people that I know.
Yeah.
And every time they're like, "Oh man, yeah, sorry, this was on, this was that, I had this on, or oh, it was so and so's wedding." I always say to them the same thing: "It's all right, because there's always going to be another."
Yep,
Yeah.
so true.
You miss this one, you can always make the next one.
Love that.
Yeah.
Love that. I'm going to put it in the diary. I promise you that. I'm not even just like,
Oh, good, bro.
I'm
Man,
not talking shit. I
think
there.
you'd have a good time, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'll let you know which ones to come to and hook you up with all the details, mate. You know me, we're easy to find each other.
That's very true, mate. That's very true. Dean Olsen on Facebook.
Oh, yeah, God,
Maybe that's not true.
I don't even use that.
Do you have a page?
Yeah, I've got a Dean Olsen Facebook page, but I don't really use it. Yeah, I don't know, man. I just do my own stuff where I can like post silly memes and horror movie stuff and, talk about Fremantle.
Love that.
I should be better on social media with my like in character stuff, but yeah,
Love that. I'd like to say that. I think we need more Dean Olsen in our lives.
Well, I'll endeavour to do more of it just for you, Robbie.
Thank you. Now, one final thing that I've sort of implemented is I always get the last guest to ask a question, and I've recorded it, right?
Okay.
And so Leachy, who works with me at the radio station, is going to ask you a question.
Okay.
You're going to answer it.
Right.
And then you're going to ask a question for the next guest.
Ah, okay.
So I'm putting you on the spot a bit here, and it can be any question you want. It can be a serious question. It can be a smart-ass question. It can be a funny question. The world is your oyster when it comes to this question.
Okay.
All right.
All
So
right.
we'll start off by playing Leachy's question.
My question would be the one moment that crystallized in your mind why you love what you do.
And you can relate this to wrestling and commentary if you would like. Leachy's was a serious question.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's tough to pin it down to like one thing. Actually, I can, and it actually doesn't involve wrestling or any of that, but I actually can pinpoint it down.
Love this.
It's more to just performing,
Okay.
whether it be radio or like I've been in bands before, whether it be with wrestling or anything. When I was 12 years old, this is going back a while because I'm bloody old, I went and saw Metallica.
Oh.
Okay, this is on the Black Album tour in 1993.
You went to the Black Album tour.
No one in my family would take me, and my mum took me. And it blew my mind so
Wow.
much that I like after that gig, I was like, I want to do that. I want to give people this great feeling that I had that night. And I started learning guitar the very next year. But from seeing that, I was like, the performing arts and stuff like that, I just want to be a part of like just some sort of interaction, things that are like that, you know what I mean? Like I was just sort of like, I want to be able to perform in one way or another, and whether it's performing commentary, performing music, or like I host events, I've done ring announcing, all these different things. Just where you get to sort of be on, you know what I mean, and just sort of like go for it and be involved in some sort of entertainment, you know what I mean?
100%. And can I just say, I've never met your mum before, but I bloody love her for taking one for the team and taking you to a Metallica concert. How good is that?
If I may, maybe 3 or 4 tours later, Mum was like, if Metallica ever come back, can you take me? And I took her when they played Burswood Dome on the Death Magnetic tour, and I got to return the favour, and I took my mum to go see Metallica.
That's
and
so good.
It was kind of beautiful.
So, mate, have you got a question for our next guest?
Okay. Mine's going to be simple and silly.
Yes, I like that.
Pineapple on pizza? Yes or no? And say why.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. And on that note, I'm going to say goodbye to you, mate. Thank you very much for coming in today.
Absolute
it's been
pleasure,
awesome,
mate.
man.
It's just good to catch up with you, man.
Bloody oath.
Yeah, thank you so much for listening. And everyone, check out EPW at EPW Perth on all the socials and YouTube and all the rest. Get amongst it and come on down if you can, because there's nothing quite like it.
Adam Parry, a.k.a. Dean Olsen. Thank you very much, man.
Thank you, brother.